Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we start today's episode, I wanted to drop a message and let you know that Christopher Lawrence does provide us with a promo code for a free life coaching session with him near the end of the episode. Wanted to give you a heads up because I definitely do not want you to miss out. All right, here we go. Hello, beautiful souls. You are listening to the Curious Monki podcast, where you're invited to join me, a curious nugget, as I go on a journey to dive deep and learn about the world of yoga, as well as everything in and around it. Poses, teacher training, and super cool topics like energy healing and crystal bowls. You'll hear it all. I'm your host, Veronica Tai. Welcome to the conversation. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Today, we are having a conversation with Christopher Lawrence, life coach, entrepreneur, and Reiki master. As a life coach, he pours his heart into helping people discover their dream jobs. He was deep into the corporate world, I think about 15 years, and it wasn't until he took a life coaching course for his own personal growth that he found his calling. Chris, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
For sure. I'll let you fill in the rest of your bio. You have just such a vibrant life.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, so I got into coaching formally about 5 years ago. I did it because I was actually quite dissatisfied with where I was in my life, and I know that you share similar experiences.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of other people have too.
That's right. Yeah. So I took a life coaching course just as part of my own personal improvement, and I did a little mini practicum at the end, which it was informal, but I took it formally and fell in love with it. I never looked back.
That's awesome. Well, tell me more. What had to transpire for you to seek out life coaching?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I think sometimes when you get on the other side of, and I'm going to use this word very loosely, but when you get on the other side of success, but I don't even, people say that and I don't really know what that means. So when you have an achievement, people look at you. So where I am now in my life, people look at me and they think, oh, look at this guy who's made something of himself. But what they don't realize is that it came just like everybody else through trials and tribulation and turmoil. And so for me, I was working in corporate Calgary. I worked for really amazing organizations, and I did very, very well. I moved up the corporate ladder quickly, but I did not enjoy what I was doing, and I couldn't quite figure it out. And when you're in that state, you start to get the itch, and then the itch starts to turn into a rash, and the rash all of a sudden turns into like a disease, right?
I like that analogy. It's so true. Yeah.
So that's what happened to me, is I was super unfulfilled. And as it does for so many people, it actually took a couple of deaths for me in my life at one period to sort of shake things up. Yeah. And so what I had started doing was I started receiving Reiki because I couldn't find any Western medicine that would help me sort of resolve what was happening. So I started taking Reiki sessions.
So you were feeling, but first I want to speak to your point about death, which is always a painful and hard time to go through. At the same time, sometimes it's situations like that make us grateful for life, realize how short it is, and that, goodness gracious, we better wake up.
That's exactly what it was. It was literally, wake up, Christopher. Wake up.
Yeah, what are you waiting for?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it was an opportunity for reflection. And I think after death we often ask that question, what is truly important in my life? Mm-hmm. And then we take some steps.
Yeah. And you almost in a way put yourself in a position where you're like, well, if I were to leave this earth, what do I want to leave with? And what do I want to leave the earth with?
That was exactly
deep
it.
Questions.
Exactly. Yeah. And realizing, and you hear this phrase, money doesn't bring you happiness, right?
Yeah.
And we hear this and we hear it, and it's a very intellectual thing. But until you've actually had money to the point where you experience financial satisfaction,
Yeah.
You don't really get that money does not bring happiness. You have to get to a point where you've hit financial satisfaction. I think not for everybody. I certainly had to.
Yeah.
I certainly had to go and make the 6 figures and do this kind of thing where it's like, wow, it's like, I'm here. This is the dream. On paper, I look great. Going back to my 10-year high school reunion, you know, it was like, I checked all the boxes.
You're the bomb.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
You feel cool walking
and on
in.
the inside felt completely miserable.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I would say, for survival reasons, like you can't live month to month in poverty and not think that money can't buy you happiness, because it can buy you survival. But don't they say that after a certain salary, your happiness from money goes down significantly?
Yes, I have heard that statistic as well.
Yeah.
So and I can't remember the exact number. It's either 62,000 or 82,000, or it might even be 52,000.
Yeah.
And it probably depends on the economy that you're in.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, satisfaction can go down based off of the kind of salary that you make, or satisfaction stops going up. So one of the things I like to say is having money doesn't make you happy, but not having money can sure make you unhappy.
Yeah.
Because it's still our system of things, right? We still have to live in this system, which is a currency-based system.
It is, yeah. If only we could do trades all over the place, right?
I like the idea of Star Trek. You do a job not because you're paid to, but because you find eternal fulfillment, and then all of your needs are taken care of.
Oh my gosh, I've watched Star Trek twice and I didn't get that.
You didn't?
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, it's totally,
Yeah.
honestly, it's a very socialist type of concept and probably not achievable in our lifetimes, but it doesn't mean I'll stop trying.
That's really, really cool. Well, the way that I think of the concept is actually eating a pizza when you're hungry. So when you're hungry and someone gives you a pizza, first slice is delicious. So is the second. And then the third, you've kind of had enough. By the fourth, fifth, sixth, you're starting to feel crappy.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't mean what it meant on slice one, right?
But for some reason we keep eating it.
Exactly. Because it's there.
Yeah, and that's like the money situation, I think.
Exactly.
I think that's a great analogy.
Thank you.
We keep eating it.
Well, I don't want to get too far off track. We just started the conversation here. So we were talking about how a couple of difficult moments in your life, a couple of deaths had brought you kind of back to reality, kind of got you to wake up a little bit, and then you sought Reiki, which I find very intriguing because I think most people who do have a difficult time don't jump straight to Reiki. Yeah,
well, you're right. I didn't jump straight to Reiki. I had done a number of things before, and of course, talk therapy being one of them. And I think talk therapy is so beneficial, but I had worked with naturopaths and doctors and this kind of thing. And I think there was an emotional level of healing that I wasn't able to experience through things like talk therapy. There's a book called The Biology of Belief. It's written by Bruce Lipton. It talks about the science behind the power of belief. And he is a neuroscientist, okay? So really fascinating read, very difficult read. I had to listen to it on audiobook because it's very, very technical.
Oh,
but there is a point in talk therapy, usually fairly early on, where the perceived benefits are no longer taking place because it's just like listening to a tape recorder. Yeah. So you have to do something else to change the subconscious, right? You have to do something outside of the words to change
rewire the synapses.
Exactly, right? And so I thought I would try Reiki. And after my first session, it was like, I don't think I had ever felt like that in my life. And so by the end of my second session, I tend to be an all or nothing guy, which is one of my greatest superpowers and one of my greatest downfalls. So I decided to take Reiki training.
Wonderful.
And this was all before the coaching started. So I fell in love with it, actually. And so I achieved my master teacher level. And I have taught a number of Reiki courses, teaching students to their master teacher level.
Wow.
And it's been so incredible. And then I thought, while I was on this path, I was introduced to something called life coaching. And I was like, I wonder what this is.
Yeah.
So instead of working with a coach, I found a life coaching course, and I decided to take it for myself.
All or nothing.
Yeah,
there
all or nothing,
go.
right?
There we
yeah,
go. Yeah.
yeah.
I do want to stay on the Reiki for a little bit here.
Please.
I find it intriguing. It's the world that I love to be immersed in. And I myself actually took Reiki level 1 training just out of curiosity. I believe that there is energy around us and that there's everything that we need is around us. It's just whether we decide to see it or not. That is a lesson that I want to believe, but I don't know yet. So I always say that there are pieces of wisdom that you believe and you're like, yeah, that must be true. It makes sense. I like it. And then there are pieces of wisdom that you know deep down inside because you learned it. Mm-hmm. I'm still trying to learn that mm-hmm. everything that we need is just around, that there's energy and things beyond what our eyes and ears and other sensories can perceive. Mm-hmm. Beyond our knowing. It's just something bigger, right?
Yes.
So I took level 1 just to see, and that was such a cool experience. Now, how did doing your entire all 3 Reiki sessions to become a Reiki master change your perception?
Oh, wow. I was pretty skeptical about anything, actually. And so my friend who is a Reiki master teacher encouraged me to come in and try, and she was so we went for coffee, and I was so questioning, not even sure if I believed in God. I'm a pretty pragmatic guy when it comes to that kind of stuff, and she opened up this whole world to me. So by the time I had finished my master teacher level, I had seen with my own eyes the impact that this can have on people, and there's still a part of me that goes, is it happening that way because they believe it's happening, or is it happening that way because the energy?
Oh my gosh.
Right? Does that sound familiar?
Me. Yes, yeah. I do that all the time.
And do you know what I realized?
Yeah.
I realized it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. And so now I have a friend who is far more pragmatic than I am, and he says, well, it's a waste of money if it's something that is just a belief and it's completely placebo. But actually, the research behind placebo and the research behind belief is so rock solid now, and they continue to do more, that actually sometimes belief is a better prescription than a prescription itself. Mm-hmm. And so what I realized is, for the little faith I had at the time, where I would place that faith is in that if I believe something to be true and something to work, then it can and it will. Yeah.
That's one thing that I do know. Our thoughts make up our reality.
They do.
Period.
It's like driving a car. Mm-hmm. So if you're driving a car and you're looking off at the animals on the side of the road, where does your car start to go?
Towards the animals,
Towards
right?
the animals.
Yeah.
So if our perception, if we're like, oh, I'm not going to, pass this thing, or this won't work, what happens to your actions and your behaviors? It follows in suit.
Yeah.
So people who tend to believe in these kind of things and have unquestioning faith, and all of a sudden you see them have these interesting realizations, or these interesting responses, or they start getting results.
Yeah.
It's because they've steered their car in the direction that they want to go.
There's a point in time where you just have to go, and once you set your sights on it, you don't look back, because if you're about to jump into a pool and you just keep looking back, you're not quite gonna get right in there.
That's right. Yeah.
That's cool. So you've dabbled in kind of that mystical side, but really now your focus, life coaching, because you started with Reiki, and after your Reiki, you ended up doing some life coaching. You heard about the course. That was the path, though. That was the path. You did Reiki. That's how you learned about life coaching, and maybe that's what made you open to it. Took the entire course.
Yeah.
And then you decided that this is it?
I thought this is it, right? And so,
Yeah.
so I had taken the course, and the time I finished the course, things were still pretty bad at work. So I was 35 pounds heavier than I am now. So
okay. Well, I think you look great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. And
because of work?
Largely because of work. I think, I think there's something to be said about genetic makeup and self-care too. And if I had been in a position where I was able to care for myself differently, then I would have made different decisions. But you don't even have the foresight when the fog is so thick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So took this Reiki course and I finished it. This life coaching course, and I finished it. And I was doing a little practicum for myself. I wanted to see what it would be like to actually coach. And at that time, that's when I also hired my own life coach. And I was doing this little practicum, and oh man, it was right in the middle of that. We hit a crux at work. Things were not going well. And then a couple more deaths.
Oh my goodness.
It was a crazy couple of years.
Hit
complete, even though I was making more money financially. And this is, do you know Ileana? I can't remember how to say her name. She's on Oprah all the time.
Oh.
She's the one that talks about the in the meantime. She does that. She's got her show.
She has that short hair.
Yeah.
Okay, I do.
Yeah.
I'll look up the name and post it in the show notes.
Yeah, sorry, I can't pronounce her name, and every time I hear it, I try, but my tongue just isn't there yet. So,
okay.
So she talks a lot about. There was an interesting quote that I just read the other day where she says something to the effect of when life wants something from you, if you are not listening, it will jerk you in the direction that you need to go.
Oh yeah. I believe in that. If you don't take the subtle hints, it'll whack you upside the head. Yeah,
the knock on the door starts to turn into somebody pounding the door down.
Yeah.
So this was what I felt like was happening for me. And I basically hit, like financially even, it was interesting. So I was making more money than I ever had, but I was in a situation where they found asbestos in a condo that I owned and was living in. And so it went from, making this money, but total financial destitution. And the only reason why I had this condo was because I had the job. And so I started to get the message. I took some time off work.
Okay.
I took probably about 4 or 5 months off work. And I thought, well, this is good. This will be a vacation. I'll decide what I'm going to do with my life. That is not what happens. All of a sudden your body relaxes and it starts to freak out saying, are you going to listen to me now? And so recovery takes a long time. Yeah. I think for about 3 weeks, I was sleeping maybe 16 to 18 hours a day.
You were so tired. You're so tired. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So the body now says, okay, we're going to change. Now that we have the opportunity, we're going to change your habits. So it was interesting. So I went back after a few months. I went back to work for about 4 weeks. Yeah. And I thought, and during that time off, I needed something creative to do. Yeah. Right. So I would maybe work on a logo for my business or, because I knew that I was going to go into consulting of some kind. And I thought maybe I would throw life coaching in. And I thought maybe just as a part-time, a couple Saturdays a month, I would take some clients, make a little bit of extra money. Yeah. And do something that I loved.
Start small, dip a toe in.
Exactly. Yeah. So I went back to work after about 4 months and I was there for 4 weeks and there was another death in my family. And so...
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy. Yeah. And so I thought, I'm not listening. There's something happening and I'm not listening.
Yeah. Well, can I just back it up a little bit here? You were talking about how your body... how it almost seemed like as if your body took the opportunity to kind of reset itself and kind of nudge you and ask you, okay, are you going to listen to me now? Mm-hmm. So what else changed? What else did you notice in those 4 or 5 months that you took off within your body?
Yeah, so physiologically, lots of issues. Like in that, I'd like to tell you in that 4 months that I was able to lose the weight and come off medication. Yeah. Actually, I would say it got worse.
got worse.
Because now you're faced with it. You can't hide behind email.
Yeah.
You can't hide behind the work, right?
Yeah, that's so true.
So lots of physiological changes.
Yeah. Because you haven't made a change yet. That actually makes sense. Because in your mind, you were thinking that you were going back to work. So while you took the time off, not that much had changed in your perception or belief.
I would agree with that.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, it was more just trying to work through the day-to-day, calm the anxiety down.
Yeah.
And really trying to come to terms with my own mortality.
Oh, I'm sure that would have... What was it by the time? 4 deaths then.
Yeah.
That would shock you. That would shock someone. Yeah.
So it was pretty significant.
Yeah.
And just trying to deal with the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to deal with the day-to-day and calm the energy down. And it was so challenging. I honestly thought I would be, because we were heading into spring and into summer during my time off. Yeah. So I thought, oh, well, this is going to be like a vacation. And it was nothing like a vacation. Recovery takes a long time.
Yeah. You were recovering. You were probably deep questions you probably had to consider. And were you question your own mortality prior to these happenings? Did you...
Yes, but avoid it. I always wondered, but it was sort of an avoidance. It was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, well, I'm going to go do something else now.
Oh, well, I'm here now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you think life coaching changed that?
I think it was a combination of things, and a large part of it was coaching, life coaching. Okay. And to be honest, I do have to give credit to talk therapy as well, having some of those conversations, but it wasn't just one thing. Everything. It's like sometimes we need a village, and I needed a village. Yeah. I agree. That's a really good point. Sometimes it's not just not just Reiki is going to get you out of it, not just talk therapy, not that one course, but altogether there could be power in that variety. Yeah. I think sometimes too, when we're in that place, we all have mentalities, right? We have like a villain mentality or victim mentality. Yes. And mine was certainly victim mentality. And so when you're victim mentality, you want somebody to come and rescue you. Yeah. Right? And what's interesting is that what I realized was all of these people were here to rescue me, but I had to make myself available to them. Yes. So while we wait for the village to come and raise us up, I had to create my village to raise me up. And so I had this practitioner, that practitioner, right? This friend, that acquaintance, right? This mentor, that mentor, right? Yeah. And sort of created my own personal village and healing network that would, and some of it very, very practical and hands-on, and some of it very, very spiritual and woo-woo, which I had not experienced, but it opened my mind. Yeah, there's so many sides, and I really like the way you put that. All right, so the 4 or 5 months that you took off, not much had changed. In fact, it went downhill a little bit. Then you went back to work, and there was another traumatic event, another death. Yeah. And then I ended up off work again for another 4 weeks to sort of process that death. And I got back to work 4 weeks later, and it was the night before I was supposed to go back. And I was like... I'm not listening. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You caught on. It's like, okay, wake up, Christopher, right? Yeah. And so I typed up my resignation the day before. That night? Oh, how did you feel? Scared. Yeah. There's supposed to be a sense of relief that comes in, and there was relief, I'm not going to lie, but there's also this, I literally went from making 6 figures down to, I think I had one paying client a month at $80 a month is what I was charging them for one Reiki session a month, and that was basically... Back to humble beginnings. Oh, back to humble beginnings. It's like, how am I going to make this work? And so I walked in with my parking pass and my ID card and my corporate credit card and my laptop and my resignation letter. And I said, you guys have been so amazing, but I can't do this. Yeah. Right? I feel like I'm selling my soul. So it's always, the one thing is, in addition to the fear that comes with
just taking a leap, getting up, leaving your job, it's always hard to say goodbye. In your situation, you had a wonderful job and you did like the people, even though you didn't actually like the work. Mm-hmm. It sounded like it was a good environment. You sound very happy, and kind of, when you're kind of thinking back on it,
it checked the boxes of happiness. So, you know, I had a decent employer. I had, you know, like it was a good job.
Yeah. They weren't, so that I would say corporate wise, best of times. Even in the worst of times, if you dislike the company you're with, dislike your boss maybe at the time, and maybe you don't really get along with your team, still hard to say goodbye.
Very, yeah.
It's still hard to say goodbye, because it's hard to change a routine. And
with all change comes a sense of loss, no matter how good the change is.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Words right out of my mouth. Exactly. So that's really interesting. And yes, so I get how it would be scary, even though there was much relief after. Yeah,
there was some relief, and then it was like, okay, now what?
Yeah, now what? Yeah. So you didn't have a plan B yet.
My plan was to go into coaching and consulting of some kind. That's what I knew.
Yeah,
and Reiki was going to be part of it. Like, it was pretty loose. It was like, I'll do some Reiki, I'll sell some essential oils. You know, it's like, I'll coach some clients. And,
we'll see, yeah.
It's like, let's see what happens, right? I'll do some change management consulting back in corporate Calgary.
Yeah. Oh, holy cow. And the funny thing is, though, and I'm saying it's funny because you've been 5 years into this business.
Yes.
And for me, exactly what you said at the beginning, people come in and they see just the huge success you are. And they don't really... No one sees the struggles. Tony Robbins says that, right? What people get praised for in public, they've done 1,000,000 times in private.
Yes.
So you've had practice, you've stumbled along the way, and then I come along and I see you with a successful coaching business and all the coaches and all the pieces that you've put together. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. How does one person even get there? So looking back, it was a scary move for you, but gosh, we'd be without all this, Change My Life coaching, without you taking that leap there. What would you say to your prior self, the Christopher who was just about to take that leap?
I would say get comfortable with hearing the word no. Redefine what failure means. And expand your definition of success.
So those last two, redefine what failure means. What's your redefinition?
So I have two, depending on the circumstance I work with. One is that I choose not to define what failure is, because if I don't define it, then there is no such thing as failure.
Oh, I love it.
That's the first one. The second one is just not doing something, just not trying is failure. We tend to look at success as a single thing, a single point in time. If I lose this much weight, if I get this much in my revenue, a tangible goal, which seems to have a single point, either a single point in time or a single defined achievement.
Yeah.
And then we look at failure as everything but that single goal.
Yeah.
I reverse that and I say, what if failure was the single point? What if it was just not trying to do something? What if it was giving up without having even tried in the first place? What if that was failure? But success was everything in between, including hearing no, maybe in the last 5 years, 100,000 times.
Wow. That's powerful.
So it feels powerful.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's powerful because there are probably many great ideas floating out there. What did I read once? I can't even credit this correctly because I don't know where I got it. But just because you have a great idea doesn't mean it's yours until you take action. So that's the thing. I think there are plenty of good ideas out there, these amazing aspirations, but it's not until you take that first step toward it, right? And that first step toward it can be scary. You can be thinking about failure, But if we define it your way, not taking the step is already failure. And then taking the step is already success. Feels pretty good.
It does.
Yeah, I could sit with that.
If you can't, totally. And if you can't get your head there, what, often, I think there's even a third way that you could look at this, which is make your definition of success include failure along the way. Right?
So if you succeed and it's smooth going and there's no failure, then is it really success?
Do you ever know anybody that succeeds without failure?
No.
Me either.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And so maybe it's hope for smooth success.
Yeah.
But expect failure along the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then get up and keep going.
Yeah, just trust in your own wings. You can figure it out. Brush yourself off.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So thanks for that. I think you also answered the second question really was, which was you redefining success. So you really kind of consolidate the two together. They do go hand in hand, and it's not like one's terrible and one's the best.
And making that definition of success as broad as you can.
Yeah.
So if I had to close my business today, and I don't know why we would do that because we're not in a position to, but should something happen, if I had to close my business today, would I say that it was a failure? I couldn't possibly say it's a failure. And have there been trials along the way? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this is also about expanding that definition.
Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. You've clearly gone through your fair share of trials and tribulations in starting this movement, in starting this passion of yours. What would you say was your greatest challenge along the way?
Oh, you probably hear this from everybody but myself. So let me define what that means.
I've been there too.
It's those gremlins, the voices inside, right? I can tell you for the first 3.5, maybe even 4 years of doing this, there was almost not a single day that I didn't want to give up.
Wow.
So imagine that every day for 4 years saying it's like, oh God, like, should I quit? Should I go back and get a regular quote unquote job, with a steady paycheck?
What were the pressures that made you feel that way?
Oh, geez. I think not knowing, was the biggest thing. So not knowing financially, right? Yeah. Uncertainty, exactly, right? Was probably one of the biggest challenges. Just not knowing, paycheck, food on your table. But even beyond that, not knowing if you're doing the right things from a business standpoint. I could see with my clients. So I think anybody can learn anything, right? Yeah. However, I think there is something to be said about natural talent too. So you have to look at both. You have to look at learned skill and you have to look at natural talent. And so right from day one, I could see that I could get results with clients. That was never in question for me.
Oh, I love
right?
that.
After my practicum, I had to do the practicum first, but it was like after 2 or 3 weeks, you come with this expertise and you start to coach people through a circumstance or a situation, right? And so my practicum was 3 months. I used 3 clients. Yeah. And I coached them twice a month for 3 months and during my practicum. And the results that we got in 3 months for some of these people were tremendous. And so I never had doubt in my ability to coach. I shouldn't say never. I rarely had doubt in my ability to coach. Okay. Then you get that client where it's like, oh, you're going to help me grow as a coach. Yeah. But it was the doubt around, am I making the right business decisions? And no matter how many books you read, no matter how many courses you take, you have to just go through it yourself.
Some days just trial by fire.
It is. And more often than not. Yeah. More often than not, it's trial by fire.
So it was the business side of things that was really difficult. But you knew, because the coaching side, you said you rarely doubted yourself. So you just knew, you had to. Is that what kept you going?
It was what kept me going. It was about seeing the clients, meeting the clients, and seeing their results. I can't promise results for anybody, but I can tell you we are so results driven, right? We want to make sure that they are achieving something or accomplishing something or feeling something new. Yeah. Because sometimes that is the achievement, is a new feeling, right? And so that is what kept me going. Wow. Absolutely.
And following that same line there, in all this, what gives you the greatest sense of fulfillment?
It is seeing my clients' results. There's no question. And it's also the thing that keeps me up at night. If there's a client who it's like, are they getting what they want from this? That'll keep me up at night. So I'm thinking about ways, maybe I need to try this approach or that approach.
Yeah.
But that is the greatest sense. My fulfillment comes from trying to impact the lives of those I meet every single day.
Yeah.
And so coaching is a really natural fit.
That is awesome. And since we're going down this path already, I can't wait to dive into this life coaching world. I just love this world, but I've never met a life coach before.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm glad to be your first.
Yeah. So just tell me what life coaching is all about. Who goes to you for life coaching? What do you personally coach on, or your favorite?
Sure. So life coaching is really broad, actually. This is interesting because I've hired a number of different coaches in the beginning to help me, and then later on to help me be a better coach, meaning I wanted to experience different styles. So I've hired a coach that was completely focused spiritually. And so she, really believes, and I think for many people who she coaches, she can help them run their businesses better and create abundance in their business through things like breathing and meditation, which I think is really incredible. Mm-hmm. And then I've gone to the really hard edge type of coach where it's like, here's how your calendar is set up and do not veer from this. And so I've experienced both sides of it and deliberately to challenge myself and expand myself. So coaching is really broad. The idea behind life coaching is that you're in your as-is state. So what is happening right now? What state are you in right now? Where are you at in your life or your business or your career or your relationship? Doesn't matter. And then there's this desired end state or the to be state, right? Yeah. This is the state you wish to be in. And so our goal as coaches is to help you get absolutely clear on what that to be state is. And then we want to move you from where you are now into that to be state. And we might do that by adding perspective or perception shifts. We might do that by changing habits. We might do that through conversation or holding accountability. Sometimes we do it. I had one client, she lost something like 30 pounds because she was very, very spiritual. She wanted to use crystals to heal herself. And so she kept a crystal in her pocket, but we also use that as a mindfulness technique. So when you're in the grocery store, I want you to tell me what this crystal means when you're in the grocery store. What will you need to be reminded of? What's the message? So I used where she was and the tools that she was comfortable with to help her get to the next level in her inflammation and weight loss journey. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's pretty broad, but the idea is that we are future focused, right? So present focused to future focused. Yeah. Where am I now and where do I need to be? And then we work through the path to get there.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's neat.
Yeah. Do you have another example of a client that just it's just a really unique story to share? Mm-hmm.
So one of my clients, and this is probably not a typical result, but she worked with me for 2.5 years, which is a long coaching relationship.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long typically?
Usually between 6 and 12 months is how long your clients work with you, but it depends. Some clients want more, right? Yeah. Usually 6 and 12. 12 months is really where we start to see permanent, sustainable change. Okay. At 6 months, we might still be just grazing the surface, but it depends on the client. Yeah. But one client, I remember, it was so interesting. She coached with me for 7 months. And I'm like, I didn't see her getting any results. And I couldn't hear her saying she was getting results. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get the sense or the intuitive feeling that she was getting results. And so I kept checking in because this is the kind of thing that I like to do, is make sure that the client is getting value. So I kept checking in with her. Like, are you sure you're getting what you want from this? Are you sure you're getting what you want? She says, yeah, I need this. This is what I need. And we were focused on the career stuff, but we jump around. We might talk about friends. We might talk about her home. Like, we would talk about all sorts of things, but I couldn't quite get her to focus. And then all of a sudden 7 months hit, and it was like snap. In an instant, she started gaining momentum. It was just like she was sort of sitting on top of the mountain waiting. Yeah. And then all of a sudden this snowball started rolling, and it was a really beautiful thing. We actually ended up starting with her physical health.
Okay.
And so myself, in conjunction with a personal trainer that she sought out,
Yeah.
we worked very heavily on creating accountability for her in terms of physical fitness and nutrition.
Cool.
She was a diabetic. She is a diabetic still, but she did come down 80 units on her insulin, which is massive.
Oh.
And then we started to focus on friendships because she felt like she didn't have a social life. So even though she had come to me for her job, the obstacles in the way had nothing to do with the job itself. It had to do with everything else in her life. And so we started to focus on friendships, and we started to run into obstacles there. And I'm like, what is preventing you? And so it came out that she was in a home that basically, from the outside looking in, it was a hoarder home. I'm not diagnosing her as a hoarder. That's not what we do as coaches. And she didn't have the psychological makeup of a hoarder. In her mind, she was just lazy and didn't take personal pride.
Yeah.
And so there was no obsession like you might get with a hoarder. It was more just, I don't care. And so over the next year and a half, she ended up pulling probably close to 3 tons of garbage out of her home.
Oh, man.
And during that time, she increased her social life. She got some friends because she had pride in her home.
Yeah.
Again, eventually she got rid of that home and moved into another situation. And then the job thing came snap almost overnight. She was like, now that all of that stuff I'm free and clear from, I'm starting to see what I want to do. And so she is a certified personal trainer, and she does very well for herself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that's such a cool story.
Yeah, so
thank
not
you
a
for
typical
sharing.
case, but really interesting study.
Yeah. Well, and that's probably with the help of life coaching, just helping change perception.
Huge.
Yeah. On that note, you've probably seen tons of clients by now.
Yes.
Have you noticed any commonalities in the tendencies between people? So whether they're coming for you for their job, friends, social life, weight, relationships, what are some of the commonalities that hold us back?
Yeah, what a great question. There's always patterns. I would say one of the first things is this funny thing that we call self-confidence. But I'm always really weary about talking about self-confidence because self-confidence comes from taking action. So it's like somebody's like, well, I'll do it if I believe that I can do it. And it's like, you'll only believe you can do it if you do it.
Chicken or the egg.
It's the chicken or the egg, right? So the biggest commonality that I would say that gets in the way from people is that they think too much about what might happen without actually answering the question, right? We say, well, what if this?
Okay.
What if that? And I always say, actually, you should answer the what ifs. Answer them. So what if that happens? What if I decide to quit my job and to, start a knitting company, right?
Yeah.
And so what if I decide to do that? And what if it fails? Well, what if it fails? Then what?
Yeah.
Answer the question. Well, then, maybe I would have to go back to work. Okay. And if you had to go back to work, then what? Well, I'd be really sad and devastated. Okay. And then what? Are you going to stay there forever? Right? Are you going to let this ruin your life? Or are you going to do something?
Well, if you put it that way.
Exactly, right? And they're like, oh, it seems so simple. And I hear that a lot. When you put it that way, it doesn't seem so bad. And that's the point.
Yeah.
Is to show you that it is never that bad.
Yeah.
As long as you continue to answer the question. So the pattern is that we stop at the first what if question.
Yeah.
And we wait for this ambiguous thing called self-confidence to come rather than realizing that self-confidence will come when we show ourselves that we can do it.
Oh yeah. Holy cow. That's so true too.
Mm-hmm.
What if, right? You have to try and then just, again, trust in your own wings.
Yes.
And if you fall on your face, dust it off.
Exactly.
Back up, you'll figure it out. Yeah.
One of the things that we really try to push here is when you feel disappointment because something hasn't worked out the way you wanted it to.
Yeah.
When you feel disappointment, we strongly encourage our staff, our clients, ourselves, because we still at the senior leadership level experience disappointment too.
Oh, yeah.
We try to allow disappointment to drive us. Right? So when you experience disappointment, allow that feeling to be the cue, to be the trigger, to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Right? Try something else. Ask better questions. Get better answers.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you make that shift?
I'll tell you, it takes practice because even our thinking is habitual, right? We don't have a lot of new thoughts from one day to the next. Our thinking is habitual too.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you have to get in there and start to become aware. So the first step is to become aware of, how am I thinking? This is where things like mindfulness are so life-changing. Because if you can become aware of the thoughts you're having and the physiological response it's having on your body, then you're going to be in a much better place to address it. Address what's happening, right? But you have to be aware. I'm thinking this and feeling this because this happened.
Yeah.
Is there another thing that I could be thinking or feeling right now? And then you start to create a new habit for that cue.
Is there another thing that I can be thinking or feeling right now? Yeah, that's a great question to add into it. I'm disappointed and I am so sad and this all sucks. But is there another thing that I can be thinking right now? Yeah, I like that.
Totally.
Yeah, you've already given us a couple of nuggets over here. But I do wonder if there was a single most impactful tool from your life coaching toolkit to help people better their lives, what would it be?
Single most impactful tool from the toolkit. To be honest with you, and it sounds a little bit cliche, but write down your goals.
Write down your goals.
And go beyond writing them down.
Okay.
I want you to write down the goal, right? And some people think they have to be time-based. I'm always wary with time-based because sometimes if you miss that deadline, you feel like a failure even though you've had progress. So I say use time-based as very, 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 be sparing with time-based goals.
Okay.
But write down your goals and then come up with, why do you want that goal? Why is it so important to you that you couldn't possibly not think of achieving it? Create an emotional connection to it. Write that down too. And then I want you to write down, what are some of the steps that you're going to take, including the step that you're going to take today after this podcast. What is the action you're going to take today to start achieving this goal? And then write down all of the obstacles that you can possibly think of that are going to get in the way.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
That you can think of that are going to get in the way of achieving this goal. And then come up with a plan for every single one of those obstacles so that you can see how resourceful you are as a human being on this earth and that you can overcome anything that you're put in front of. Yeah. Where we stop is that we hit obstacles and so we lose momentum and then we lose motivation.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to remind yourself that overcoming obstacles is actually part of the momentum. This is why people do obstacle course racing, right? Yeah. OCR they call it now, right? Obstacle course racing. The reason why they do it is because they want to overcome the obstacles. So think of it like an obstacle course race. You look forward to the obstacle. It's one of the fun things. You don't know if it's a balance beam or climbing a rope or climbing over a wall. I can tell you it's coming. The question is, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So come up with a plan. Of
That's
course,
cool.
You might hit obstacles that are not, that seem insurmountable.
Yeah.
Then find another way.
Yeah. And is there a common obstacle that most people hit where, well, it usually trips them up?
Mm-hmm. You know, this is a really big buzzword right now, but it's actually lack of grit.
Lack of grit.
Yeah.
They just don't want to try.
So grit is like
hard.
Yeah, grit is about having fortitude. No matter what is coming at you, you just keep going through. Wasn't it Winston Churchill who said, when you're going through hell, your job is to just keep going. Mm-hmm. That's the idea, is that if you have grit, you keep going. When I think of grit, I always think of like an army soldier who is literally going through hell in maybe World War I or World War II, and you just keep going. It doesn't matter how dirty you are. It doesn't matter if you're hungry. You just get up and you do it again and again and again. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, hard to do when you're in it, though.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So you fall down X amount of times. Mm-hmm. You just need to muster up that grit to just get up again. And
this is where community comes in play. Okay. And community can be two people, like a coach and a client. It doesn't have to be, but it can be two people, like a coach and a client. And if one of those people has achieved something that the other person wants to achieve, their chance of being successful is increased significantly. And this is where the whole coaching realm comes in. And it really plays nicely on the chemical response that the body has when you're in that sense of community.
And that's true. You could always use a friend. I could always use a workout buddy.
I know, yeah. Why is it always working out? Yeah.
I could always use a workout buddy. Although I have to say, with your previous advice of think of all the obstacles, I actually like working out, so I'm pretty much good to go. Yeah. But I always make sure, whether or not I plan to actually work out that day, to have my gym clothes with me. I never want it to be an excuse that I didn't bring my gym clothes with me. And I'm lucky. I have a gym in my company. I've been there 5 years. There hasn't once where I've said I can't work out because I don't have my clothes. So, yeah.
See, and I think that's brilliant
for success
because you've planned it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and this is what the science shows too. The people who have the most detailed plans are usually the ones who have the best success. Because they've thought about how to overcome. There's some really interesting research on this in the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg.
Okay.
Totally worth the read.
Okay, well, that's on my book list then.
Yeah, awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you for all your wisdom. I can't believe we're almost out. How did that happen? I can't believe we're almost out of time. So let me ask you one more question before we close here. 2 more questions before we close here. Just because one kind of relates to the other. So the first is when we had been talking earlier and when you sent me your bio, you talked about your mission as being one of them, being able to help people find their dream jobs. And that was your whole journey, right? You were in corporate for 15 years and you had to get such strong signs before you were able to make a change. So how would you define dream job?
Oh, so the dream job, it's interesting. My approach to this is not a traditional approach. Okay, so a traditional approach to career discovery is that you go and do something like a Myers-Briggs type assessment, super useful tool. Yeah. And then your career coach or your career counselor will give you a list of job titles that are related to your personality type. But now, the world we live in, I feel like that is a huge disservice, and I'm quite passionate about it, actually. Okay. I've got a blog coming out in the next few weeks, might be a couple months now, exactly on this topic. Okay. And the reason why it's a disservice is because there is something called the National Occupation Registry. And there are over 40,000 job titles listed in that registry. When we pull job titles for these types of assessments, we're pulling from there. So I did my Myers-Briggs recently just to prove a point. And I looked on the first 3 websites saying typical jobs for my personality type. Yeah. And what's yours? Mine is ENFP. So interesting. Extroverted, intuitive, ENFJ. So extroverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. Right. Perfect. We've got 2 of us. Oh, there you go. Of course, right? Of course. And Oprah, she's an ENFJ. I know. ENFJ. Yeah. So I looked it up, and in the first 3 websites, I found over 100 job titles that I would fit in. Half of them I had done and hated, even though it was for my personality type. The other half I didn't understand, and the third half, I know there's only 2 halves, but and the last third of it were things that I would just never consider as part of my life. And wouldn't you know that career coaching, life coaching, public speaking, and writing were not on the list. And so my approach is we look at the job itself. What are the tasks that fill you up? Because that's what a job is. It's what you do day to day. Yeah. It's not being the vice president of, human resources. That doesn't mean anything. What are the tasks that job does? Because that's what you do every day. That's true. So we look at that. We look at your value system. So how do you want to live? What's important to you? And then we look at your 6 human needs. And that's a reference back to Tony Robbins' work. We want to make sure we look at the 6 human needs. What are the 6 human needs? They are certainty. So we have a human need for certainty. We have a human need for variety or uncertainty. Right? Okay. We have a human need for love and connection. Yes. We have a human need for growth. Yeah. We have a human need to feel significant. Of course. And we have a human need for, did I say 5 or 6? You said 6. Oh, did I? I was counting on my fingers, but I missed one. I said 6, but I had 5 fingers.
Okay.
So there's 6.
That's
yeah.
okay.
So we want to make sure as often as possible, your job is meeting your value system. It's giving you tasks that put you in your peak state.
Yeah.
And it's meeting your 6 human needs.
Cool.
As often as possible.
Yeah, that's a really neat way to look at it in terms of the 6 human needs. And the reason why I asked you this is I wanted to dig deeper. I wanted to drill in a little bit, because when we say dream job, I think there's almost a stigma attached to it now. Like, dream job, that's what's going to make me happy and
it means
fulfilled.
and it means I make a lot of money but don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Or more rather, what I asked you that question because I'd like to really drill down on what does that really mean? Like what you said, the tasks, what tasks, not just the title, not just the money, what tasks make you happy? And then for me, the world that I'm in, because I'm so immersed in the world of yoga, a little bit of spirituality. I love that mysticism, but really I call myself the curious monkey because I'm in search for truth. I'm in search for finding that unshakable core of joy within each of us, right? And part of it is what we do for 60% of our day in our jobs. But we need to get crystal clear on what that looks like. And so that's amazing. Thanks for answering that.
Absolutely.
The next one, I don't know if it's easier or harder, but you've been nailing these left, right, and center. So I do wonder, in taking your life coaching course and just in kind of your ramping up of leaving your job so that you could pursue this passion of yours, what was the one question that was posed to you, or the one question that you answered that changed everything?
The question, that is a great question, by the way.
Thanks.
The question that was posed to me during that time in my life, and it showed up certainly in my life coaching program, but it actually showed up a couple of other times. And the question was, because we all want to contribute to, if I didn't say the 6th human need, that was it, by the way, the sense of contribution. That was the 6th one.
There we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I did say 5.
I think you only said 5. Yeah.
Contribution is the 6th one. So interesting that you should ask me a question that would lead back to that. But contribution is the 6th human need. So we need to feel like we're contributing. Yeah. And so one of the best questions that I was ever asked, that changed everything, was, Christopher, tell me, and sit down, do reflection on this, right? What problems have you already overcome in your life that you have solutions to today? Because all of the solutions that you come up with to every problem you've overcome in your life is completely transferable to another area of your life.
Wow.
And it's also a way that you can contribute to somebody else's success.
Wow. So do you have an example of what you had come up with?
Oh, geez. Well, there was so much. I always go to the big stuff, right? I always go to, having overcome a drug addiction and having been a high school dropout and
you write that in your bio.
It's in my bio,
you're so open about it, and that must have been such big obstacles. You've been through a lot.
So I think, but I think we all have, right? We all have a story, right? And to us, no matter how big or small it is by societal standards, to us it feels big,
Okay, yeah.
So I think with all of that, though, probably one of the biggest things that I was able to challenge, and it's a nondescript thing, but something that was important to me, was the ability to establish new habits. So while that's nondescript in terms of an example, I've seen it in many places in my life. So the tenacity to study was not something that was bred in me at birth, nor through elementary or junior high or high school. But then college came, and so that was one of the things that I was able to do, was establish a study habit, establish a mindfulness habit, establish an eating habit, right? Because it's not just about food, but it's about food behaviors, right? So that's probably one of the solutions and it drives to action. So quick wins make, achieving things. That is something that,
that's fantastic.
That would be big for me. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm now you can see the gears rolling in my head. I'll probably journal and write about that, reflect on that tonight. That's a really good one. what problems have we overcome
Yes.
that we were able to find solutions to, because that's transferable.
It's transferable.
I don't know that everyone looks at it that way.
I would agree with
love
that.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. And I have to give a mentor of mine credit for that. That's
Yeah.
Abe Brown. Abe Brown was the guy that taught me my very first level of coach training. And he asked that question, and he said take a couple hours, but then take a weekend.
Yeah.
Take a retreat and sit down and
Really
answer that
think.
question, and you'll realize how powerful you are.
I love it. Thanks,
Yeah.
Abe Brown.
Yeah, Abe Brown.
Yeah.
He's a great
I don't
guy.
even know who he is.
Yeah, he's with the Certified
Love it.
Coaches Federation, which is
Yeah.
where I took my first level of training. So,
Okay.
yeah, great organization.
Thanks. Oh, Christopher, seriously, I don't know where time's gone with you, but we are at time. And I lied. Those two were like the two interview questions, but then I do have my closing question that I ask on every episode, which is, of everything you've learned, and you've, like I said, you've been through so much, you've learned so much. What is the biggest lesson?
It's not going to go the way that you want it to. It's not going to go the way you want it to.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that it can't still be amazing.
So true.
And that is, for me, that is the greatest lesson.
Yeah. Making peace with where you are.
Yeah.
Making the best of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for having this conversation with me and sharing so much knowledge with us.
Thank you.
If anyone has further questions for you or wants to contact you a little further, I know you've got a treat for us too. So I know you'll tell us about it. Where can they contact us, and tell me, what is that treat you're going to give us?
Perfect. So I'm so glad you asked. So part of what we do here are, all corporations have a mission, vision, and values, but we also have a corporate question. And our corporate question is, how do we help those we serve achieve even more of their dreams? And so there are lots of ways that we do this, and who we serve aren't just our clients, but it's also our communities, and it's our clients' families, and this kind of thing. So we go really broad. If you want to know more, you can go to our website, changemylifecoaching.ca. Not change your life coaching, changemylifecoaching.ca. And you can reach me on there just by filling in our contact form. We're still small enough that anything that's for me gets directly to me, so you'll be talking directly to me. But if you want to take advantage of our little treat, so here's the deal. If you go to our website, and this is where your listeners need to grab a pen and maybe rewind this and listen to this part again. Go to our website and click on Our Coaches, and you're going to find my bio, Christopher Lawrence. When you click on that bio, there's going to be a little box there that says book your first session. For anybody that's listening, I'm offering my session to your listeners complimentary between now and December 31st of 2017. So when they click your book your first session, the session is 90 minutes. You're going to enter the promo code Monki 2017, but it's Monki spelled like the name of the podcast, Monki 2017, so 2017, the numbers. If they enter that promo code, it will bypass the payment. They get a 90-minute session with me. In that session, you do a motivational map, so we find out how you're motivated. We discover your top 3 motivators. We get clarity on the direction you need or want to be going in. We find out what's slowing you down, stopping you, or standing in the way. And we leave you with action. So I actually write out unique strategies for every single person. We do this over the phone and in person, whatever works best for the person who's signing up for the session.
Holy moly. Can I sign up for
You
one?
can sign up for one.
That's a lot. That's really impactful. Thank you so much, Christopher. That is such a generous offer. And as always, everyone who's listening, I'll post this on my website. You'll have the code and then contact and everything. Well, it has been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you again for being on the show. And for everybody who's listening, thank you for tuning in. I will post all relevant links and resources on my website, veronicatai.com. Let me know what you thought of this episode by commenting, liking, or subscribing. Catch you on the next episode.